Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Rapid Response, brought to you by Apex Benefits Group and our sister company, Axiom Human Resource Solutions. I'm Todd Rokita. I'm the General Counsel at Apex Benefits, and I'm their Vice President of External Affairs. We also have two great colleagues with us today. Brooke, would you introduce yourself? And Andy, you too. Brooke?
I'm Brooke Salazar. I am Apex's in-house associate counsel as well as an HR consultant.
My name's Andy Zelt. I am founder and president of local-based Axiom Human Resource Solutions in Indianapolis, Indiana, payroll and HR solution using Kronos Workforce Ready platform.
All right. So we've been talking about the CARES Act, which just literally moments ago passed the House of Representatives, on its way to the president's desk, probably already law. We've discussed small business administration provisions in a previous episode. Now we're talking about the payroll tax provisions found in the CARES Act. So first, I guess the first thing to note is that there are a lot of tax provisions in the CARES Act. We're going to focus on the payroll tax provisions, but make sure you're talking to your tax professional, others about bringing forward prior year losses, and a lot of other concepts that are found in the CARES Act. But for purposes of today, guys, the employee retention credit is a big one that has to do with our payroll, with other things we do on behalf of employers for employees. It's a refundable payroll tax credit equal to 50% of up to $10,000 in wages per employee, including their health care benefits cost. It's that tax paid by employers during that they would pay during the coronavirus crisis. Any thoughts on that?
So any wages that I pay for the rest of the year, I can defer the tax payments, the IRS tax payments, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty sweeping. Also, there's some limits. It's not for everyone. I mean, your operations have to be fully or partially shut down by a government order limiting commerce, travel, and group meetings due to the coronavirus, or your quarterly receipts are less than 50% for the same quarter 1 year prior, Andy. But really, we are looking across the country, certainly around the state of Indiana, and it's hard to see what the companies, whether they're for-profit, not-profit, public sector, perhaps will be excluded. Would be one that would be excluded here, but most businesses have been affected by this.
It seems like a nightmare to have to take care of and try to remember and make sure when you pay it a year from now, 2 years from now.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, but there's going to be, for sure, there's going to be some after the fact calculations, computations, and recording that you're going to have to do around this. It's not going to be easy, but I think, remember the public policy of this, guys, is to get liquidity into the economy, keep the gears turning, keep people on payroll until we get through this. What makes us different than other crises we've had in terms of the economy is that, number one, this was actually caused by the government for a good reason, to stop a lethal virus, and we know it's going to be over. And with all the pent-up demand that's out there, this really has the potential to be a pretty good V-shaped recovery, going down sharply, but also going up sharply. And what this liquidity does, with this terribly high amount of money, frankly, it gets us through the lowest points of the V. Brooke, can you talk to us about double dipping and how that's going to be prohibited here?
Absolutely. So employers that receive the small business interruption loans are not eligible for this credit. So those wages that qualify for the emergency paid leave credit and the FFCRA are not eligible for this credit. The credit is for the wages paid by the eligible employers from March 13, 2020 through December 31, 2020. And Todd, I was trying to remember the last time something like this was passed this quickly. Do you remember? Do you have any recollection of this type of bipartisanship? Just reflecting the seriousness of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's amazingly fast. I know people have been screaming because there's real pain out there, and that's understood. The fact of the matter is trying to get 535 individuals who really don't have a boss. I mean, they may have leadership, but they are responsible to each one of their constituencies. Getting all of them together and act in some kind of concert is really remarkable. It also means there's going to be a lot of holes in this bill. I mean, and certainly it should be better than the first two in terms of the gaps that have to be filled by regulation, because this one had a lot more time, relatively speaking. But still, this is a terribly high amount of money that we have to be solemn about as well, because it's not even us that are have to pay this back. It's going to be others that aren't even born yet in a lot of cases that are going to get this bill. But two, realize that there's going to be holes, and we're going to have to work through them with the agencies as we go forward, whether that be Department of Labor, IRS, or whoever else. But the idea of getting money into the pockets of employers and employees, I've never seen anything like this or move so fast, and especially in a bipartisan way. So the Social Security tax deferment. So this allows employers and self-employed individuals to defer payment of the employer share of a Social Security tax they otherwise are responsible for paying to the federal government with respect to their employees. So, as we know, employers generally are responsible for paying a 6.2% Social Security tax. The provision requires that the deferred employment tax be paid. It's not forgiven, but it's going to be deferred over the next 2 years. So really, the first payment due about 2 Christmases from now, 50%, and then the third Christmas after that will be another 50%. So you can defer the employer side of the Social Security tax here for years, and that's regardless. It may be related, but it's not contradictory to or dependent on whether or not paid sick leave has been taken. Because remember, from the prior bill, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, there's money that's being switched from going to being paid in Social Security taxes to going right to emergency paid sick leave, emergency family medical leave. Regardless if your business has those employees and needs to make outlays for that or not, this is for your for employers' use, as long as you were affected by the coronavirus.
So it seems that they're really expecting employers to take a couple of years to be able to come back with this infusion. Is that your sense of it?
Yeah, that's right. It's about keeping the liquidity, keeping the money, keeping the cash at the employer-employee level, not sending it to Washington, because frankly they're printing other money to replace that. So it's not like even the Social Security fund is going to have less in it. They're printing money to replace the money that's going to be kept here with other funds. It does go on our total debt load, of course. So here's another tax provision, Andy. Advanced refunding of the credit. So, what happens in all this when the businesses may have expenses like the emergency paid sick leave, the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, they don't have the revenue to even take advantage of a credit. Well, that is something that we certainly heard loud and clear with some of our clients, and the idea is to have the IRS actually get you cash in hand to make up that difference.
Yeah, that's the biggest question I'm getting from employers this past week is, how am I going to pay the emergency sick, extended family leave when I have no cash coming in? Any idea how the credit is going to work?
Well, if you look at at the detailed language of the bill and try to read between the lines, if you go to the IRS and see what they press releases and some other conversations that you would have with with leaders there, you can tell that the IRS has been working on this whole time, ever since the outbreak started, and that the knowing that this was going to be an issue. So I suspect, in a very hopeful way, that the IRS has already behind the scenes put together the machinations, the processes and procedures that will be used for, in a very short time. The bill calls for certainly weeks or a week or two, not months, after applying for such cash, that businesses would get it. What you have to show the IRS, I think that's still being worked out. But if the small business loans, like the paycheck protection plan, and those things are any kind of indication, you can see relaxed standards, relaxed review, and just simple documentary evidence that you were a business, that you had employees. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be right now, but it should be along those same lines if it's going to work. So those were the tax provisions we want to talk about. Again, a reminder, just know that there are a lot of other tax provisions in there. These were focused on, our discussion was focused on payroll taxes. See your tax advisor or other resource to learn about several other taxes, not necessarily regarding payroll, that's also in the CARES Act.